Allora, buongiorno a tutti. Tanti di voi già mi conoscono. Io sono Simone Daltoso, sono il product manager in Telestar dei prodotti networking, tra cui TOSIBOX. Iniziamo oggi questo webinar. Cari, che è una persona direttamente di TOSIBOX, responsabile vendite estero, ci presenterà la soluzione TOSIBOX con dei risvolti dedicati soprattutto a quello che è l'argomento, uno degli argomenti principali di questo periodo, di questi ultimi anni, e che sarà sempre più importante anche nei mesi e negli anni a venire, ovvero la cybersecurity. Quindi per qualsiasi cosa, assolutamente, durante la presentazione potete utilizzare la sezione question and answer, domande e risposte, quindi per fare le domande, e poi o durante la presentazione o al termine vedremo di rispondere alle domande e quindi chiarirvi un po' le idee. Anche sulla presentazione, se avete bisogno di qualche chiarimento in italiano, assolutamente, per essere un pochino più chiari, scrivetelo tranquillamente e poi alla fine vediamo di chiarire tutto. Ok, cari, I made just the introduction in Italian language. That is more easier for us.
Okay, great. Thanks, Simone. So, thanks for the introduction. So, let's go ahead and begin. Again, my name is Kari Hietaneva with TOSIBOX, and the topic of today for this webinar is cybersecurity in industrial automation. So, we will talk a little bit about the challenges in securing operative networks, OT environments. We're going to talk about what to look for in a secure connectivity solution, what kind of things are important to consider when picking a solution for your connectivity needs and for securing your OT networks. Then we will, after talking about these challenges and what to look for in a solution, I will talk a little bit about how we have solved these issues and how you can respond to these requirements and these challenges with the TOSIBOX solution. So I will talk about the TOSIBOX platform. I know some of you know our products already, but I want to talk about our entire TOSIBOX platform. And I also want to talk a little bit about the newest things that we have, not so much focusing on them. We're focusing a bit more on the security topic, but I want to briefly talk about our platform. I want to talk about TOSI Control and just briefly about some of our latest block models. And like I think Simone already said, feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A session, yes, and we can then answer those at the end of presentation. All right, so let's start. Hey, just a quick introduction about TOSIBOX, very briefly for those who don't know TOSIBOX that well yet, or just a reminder for those who do. TOSIBOX was established in 2011, so for 13 years we have delivered security, secure connectivity solutions for automation networks. We are a Finnish company. Our headquarters is in Oulu, Finland, and our research and development is also here in Finland. But we are a truly global company, so we have our own subsidiaries in Europe, in Germany, Sweden, UK, and also in North America. North America is one of our fastest growing markets, and we are also present in Australia. But we operate with our very strong partner network. So we have strong partners like Telestar. We have partners in, I think, around over 40 countries at the moment. And our solutions, TOSIBOX solutions, are being used in over 150 countries. So we are truly a global growing company. And we serve multiple industries like building automation and industrial automation. Those are the biggest customer segments and industries for us. But we also have a growing customer markets in the utilities, water and wastewater, kind of the municipality core essential services sector, as well as in the energy sector. So both renewable energy and traditional oil and gas. And of course, a number of others as well, but just to mention a few. We have our own patents. We are a software company. A lot of you know our devices, but inside those devices, there's of course our software, and our software is the key. And we have over 40 global patents in our software, how we implement our solution and what makes our solution work automatically and in a secure manner. In addition, we have a number of industry certifications, of course, in order to serve all these markets and to meet the industry requirements. And we have quality certification and security management certification, so ISO 9001 and 27001 certification. That's just as a brief introduction to TOSIBOX. And let's go to today's topic. So of course, why we are talking about this and why is it important to talk about these topics is that there are, according to projections, in next year, there should be over 40 billion IoT and OT devices that are connected to networks all over the globe. And as many of you know, networking is the growing trend in the OT side. So systems are constantly being connected to network. There are new things that are needed to connect those devices to network. There's a need to collect data. There's a need to do analytics. There's need to do, of course, remote maintenance and all kinds of remote servicing. And there are more and more needs to connect devices to the network in the IoT and OT world. And therefore, security is absolutely essential as well. And today we're going to talk about some of the challenges that there are when connecting OT devices in OT environments to networks. First of all, I want to talk about legacy systems. As many of you know, in OT environments, the lifespan of devices is quite long. So compared to the IT world, where oftentimes there can be new, or the device life cycle is maybe 3 to 5 years, but in OT world, it can be much longer, which means that there are a lot of old systems still in use. There are still a lot of old operating systems still in use, and they have to be used because they cannot be easily upgraded and so forth. And therefore, there can be a lot of vulnerabilities in those systems. So it is absolutely crucial to consider when connecting those type of systems to the network that there can be a security, implications, and they can be vulnerable to attacks when they are connected to networks. Same thing with kind of related to that also, kind of the OT environment life cycle and the way those systems are maintained, that there are often lack of patching and updates. So those systems, because the OT systems are critical, so oftentimes the patches and updates are not applied frequently, or they are not applied at all because there's an often complex process in order to do that. And therefore, also those systems can become vulnerable because they are not constantly updated and there are not automatic updates in place. And of course, organizations can also be a little bit hesitant to apply those updates because those systems are so critical. Then complexity and interdependencies. OT environments are typically complex. There are a lot of different types of devices that are connected. There can be sensors, there can be controllers, there can be HMI interfaces, and so forth. And this complexity can mean that it's difficult to comprehensively understand the entire network of systems and identify those security gaps and vulnerabilities. And it can be also difficult to kind of get a real-time view of what is the status of those devices and what are the most critical items that should be controlled or taken care of. There might be a lack of situational awareness. What is the overall status of those systems in terms of security? Limited security controls. There can be some traditional security controls that are used in IT networks, like in typical IT systems. They may not be sufficient for OT systems, because oftentimes OT systems require some specialized controls that are designed to protect the critical infrastructure. And some of those systems in place in IT world may completely lack those kind of things needed for a proper security and network segmentation. Operational continuity is also an important topic, because in OT systems, the operational continuity is usually the priority, and available. If there's any kind of interrupting critical processes, it can have significant consequences in the organizations, and organizations they need to balance the need for those security measures with the requirement of keeping the systems running. So there can easily be some kind of a compromise that is done between applying those security controls and between keeping the systems running, and that can also cause a little bit of a gap there, how well those systems can be secured, because the priority is always the availability and keeping those systems running constantly without any interruptions. Insider threat is a threat that is worth mentioning also in the OT world, because there are oftentimes there can be different types of users in the system. There can be employees, there can be contractors, there can be outside service companies and so forth. And there's not always a good overall control of who has access to the network. There can be a lack of awareness as to who has access to the network, who has access to the systems, and how is that access maintained and monitored as those employees or contractors change roles or they go away and the new contractors will come in place, and how that is controlled. So that is a good to keep in mind also, as it is a significant threat both in the IT world and in the OT world as well. Those sort of trusted users that can also be a potential threat. Lack of security awareness is also important in the OT world, and especially in the OT world, because as we all know in IT, oftentimes these days there's all kinds of security awareness training that is done for employees periodically and so forth, and in many organizations it's even mandatory, but on the OT side it's not necessarily the case. And since there can be a lot of third-party operators that have access to the systems, we don't always know what the security awareness of those is and who really has the keys to the systems and how they are controlled when they're kind of outside of the organization. Then finally, and also important, is the convergence with IT networks. As many of you know, in these days, it is often necessary to kind of integrate the IT world into the OT world, whether it's for the reason of some kind of a monitoring system that needs to be implemented, whether it's for data collection, transferring data and analytics data to the cloud environments or to data centers and so forth. So there's time to connect to those. There's a need and a business requirement to connect those two worlds together, and how that can be done in a secure manner is of course very important in the OT environments, and from the security standpoint a very important thing, because we still need to keep those two secured. secured. And just as a reminder, the OT kind of, without going deeply into different types of attacks and so forth, there are a lot of stories out there, but just to remind that OT environments are really a target these days, and they have become more of a target during the past years. And if you have followed kind of the trends, security trends, how the governments are reacting, a lot of you know how the EU is reacting to this, and how the for example, government in North America has reacted to this, and they have raised the awareness, and they have also raised the bar to make sure that those critical environments are secured, because OT environment has become a critical, also a significant target to all kinds of attacks. And of course, we are living in a very uncertain times in terms of geopolitical issues, and that also can increase those threats even from sort of a governmental type of instances. So need to be taken into account as well. Okay, so then the next I wanted to talk a little bit about how then, thinking about all those challenges that I was just mentioning, when you select a connectivity solution for your OT environment, what kind of things you should be looking at? Besides, of course, everybody's interested about the cost, but if you think about what you're actually getting for the money, and what you should be getting, and what kind of things you should be considering, I wanted to bring up a few here. And there's actually quite a lot to talk about, but we have a short amount of time. But let's try to get a brief overview of all of these. So I wanted to start with compatibility. By compatibility, I wanted to kind of talk about, to ensure that those secure connectivity solutions that you are implementing, that they're compatible with your existing infrastructure. Of course, because if they're not, the implementation can be difficult or impossible, or they cannot perform in your environment. So you should pick a trusted vendor that you know that has been using, or whose customers are using the same type of solution in a similar environments, and that they have been tested and they have been sort of battle proven with the type of systems you are using. Because often in OT environments, there can be systems that are not maybe that standard, or they're not used everywhere or all over globally in place, compared to the IT world, where everything is pretty much, well, not everything is standard, but they're so widely used, and most of the business applications are very common and very commonly used, and the technologies are very mature and they have developed. Whereas on the OT side, as you all know, that's not necessarily the case. So it's very important that the security solution is also compatible with your existing systems, and that the vendor can actually prove it, that they have tested and they have customer data to prove that hey, this is compatible, and we have experienced using this type of solution in a similar type of environment. The next topic is independency, and by independency I mean independency of using any type of connectivity that you need. Because of course, if you need a secure connectivity, let's say you need remote connectivity, or you need to do data collection, or whatever the reason is that you need a secure connection. Of course, before you can have a secure connection, you need to have some type of a connection. So you need to have, either you have a fiber link, or you have an existing internet connection, or you have a 4G mobile connection, or you have an MPLS network from an ISP, or whatever it may be. When you deploy a secure connectivity solution, you should be able to use whatever you want as the underlying connection. So you should be able to pick whatever ISP you want, or whatever connection type you need, whether it is a mobile network, or whether it's a fixed connection, or whether it's a satellite or radio. It shouldn't really matter. So you shouldn't be really locked into your service provider. So of course, I know in a lot of markets, or in most markets, the service providers, they will be happy to provide you with a security solution, and they will be happy to provide you with the connectivity solution, but they also want to lock you in to their own services. But it's financially, it's oftentimes it's more flexible, and it can be more cost effective if you can pick your own. So let's say that you need a resilient, redundant connection. You can ask for that kind of a service from the service provider, but it can be expensive. Whereas you can also pick a solution that can support failover by using different service providers. So you can pick the cheapest ones for your area, for your location, and you can still have a secure and highly available redundant connection without having to pay too much. So that's what I mean by independence. Then privacy. This is also a very important topic. When you deploy a security solution, let's say you deploy a VPN solution or some kind of a cloud-based solution or whatever it is, you should always think about what happens with your data. Is your data being routed through a cloud environment somewhere? Is the vendor actually analyzing your data in some way? Is your data really private? Is it encrypted end to end? Because that's how it should be, so that you should always know who is accessing your data or your customer data, so that it is always kept secure. It doesn't go to the vendor cloud. Of course, they will tell you that it's secure, but is it actually secure? Does it remain? Does anybody have keys to decrypt, for example, your data or your customer data? Those are important questions. Next up is connectivity. The solution should have a flexible connectivity options. So you should be able to pick from whether you need mobile networks, 4G, 5G connectivity, whether you need fixed connections, how many LAN ports you need, and so forth, so that you get the most cost-effective solution that supports the connection methods that you need. Then security. The solutions support all the modern security technologies, so that just to make sure that, like, for example, in our solution, we use commonly used, well-known encryption algorithms, key exchange mechanisms, security, any type of security component in our software that is essential is commonly used, and it's well known, which means it is also can be kept up to date. Then next is automation. Of course, this is very important when deploying security solutions to OT networks, because you don't always have access to security experts or data communication experts, but it should be as automated as possible, so that it's very cost effective to deploy, and it's also easy to maintain. And this is also critical in the manageability, from the manageability point of view, so that you should have a solution that can be centrally managed. So regardless if you have 2 devices or 20 devices or 200 or 2,000 devices out there in different locations, you can still have centralized control, you can have centralized access control, and you can have centralized visibility to all of those devices. So those are some of the things that should be considered, that I would recommend to consider when you look for a secure connectivity solution, and to keep in mind what you are getting, because there are a lot of connectivity solutions out there, and there are even a lot of vendors who will advertise that their solution is secure. But it's good to challenge those vendors and to make sure that you are getting a solution that is secure, and is actually secure, is compatible, and it will be secure also in the future, so that the vendor will actually stand behind it and it will be kept up to date. And I wanted to bring just a quick quote from one of my favorite security authors, Bruce Schneier, who has also written a lot of books, and he has also written the an encryption algorithm by himself, and he said that the complexity is a worst enemy of security, and it truly matters. It really matters, especially in the OT world, because as systems becomes more complex, the networks become more complex. Security and managing security should be kept as simple as possible because it is easier to make mistakes. If you think about traditional firewalls, for example, it's very easy to misconfigure them in a way that will completely override the security settings. And most firewalls will not be able to analyze it or tell you that, hey, you have actually misconfigured. They will happily do whatever you want. And anybody who has ever managed traditional firewalls knows that when you manage a firewall rule base, for example, as the rule base grows more complex, it becomes eventually impossible to read and understand, and it often leads to just adding more rules to the rule base without really understanding what the implications are. And same goes with other security parameters as well. It should be as simple as possible because it's usually a human being who is responsible for the system, and it's the responsibility of the human being to understand how that security solution has been configured to make sure that it is actually secure. So this leads me to then continue by kind of explaining how with TOSIBOX we are answering to these challenges, all of these challenges, whether it's centralized manageability or security or reducing complexity. We have created the TOSIBOX platform, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the TOSIBOX locks and keys that we have been delivering for 13 years, but we have gone a long way and we have done a lot of development into developing this into a real OT cybersecurity platform. And it basically has three main elements. And if I start from the centralized management, some of you may know our central locks, or what used to be called the central lock or virtual central lock. We have developed that into what we call a TOSIBOX hub. And the TOSIBOX hub is a centralized, basically a centralized server that can be used to manage and used as a managed central connectivity point for tens or hundreds or thousands of TOSIBOX locks and keys. And together with TOSI Control that we introduced this fall, it gives you basically centralized control over your security parameters, your access control, centralized logging, centralized visibility with TOSI Control, which I'm going to show you very briefly in the next slides. So you will get control and visibility to your entire OT security network. Next is our locks, so physical locks, software locks. Familiar to a lot of you, I will show you a couple of new models that we have, but these integrate with the TOSIBOX hub and TOSI Control, and these are the central. These are the basically the secure gateways for the OT network that provide protection and secure connectivity. And then we have the TOSIBOX keys, USB keys, software-based keys, mobile keys that basically enable strong authentication. We don't allow weak authentication methods in TOSIBOX, but we always require the user to have a strong token-based authentication by using our keys. A little bit about the architecture without going too deep. So basically, if you're familiar with TOSIBOX, you know our keys, our locks, they're still here. We'll talk about TOSIBOX nodes. These are basically the locks. These are the keys that the users will use to connect. We have the TOSIBOX hub here in the center that can provide centralized control and also access to data centers or cloud environments and so forth. You can run your applications on your TOSIBOX platform, just like you've been always doing. And this will secure OT devices. This will secure the user connections. And these all connect to our backend systems. We're talking about TOSIBOX Cloud here, but this is really our own TOSIBOX backend that will automatically enable these users and TOSIBOX locks and TOSIBOX hub to find each other and connect to each other in a secure manner. And then we have TOSI control on top of this to give you centralized visibility into your entire TOSIBOX ecosystem. And all of this works automatically using our patented technology. So you only have to connect the locks to internet. You have to connect your key or your software key, and these devices and software, they will automatically find each other through our backend systems. And with TOSI control, you then have full visibility into your entire TOSIBOX network. So I wanted to, I don't want to focus, yeah.
Just one moment, if you can come back to the previous slide. I want to say just a few words in Italian language.
Absolutely.
Ok, allora, volevo intervenire per spiegarvi più che altro in italiano. Allora, tanti di voi, tanti dei partecipanti conoscono TOSIBOX assolutamente, l'hanno già utilizzato e tutti conoscono TOSIBOX come un sistema semplice per la teleassistenza, quindi con i lock installati sugli impianti e le chiavi, che siano hardware, software o mobile client, ai vari utenti per stabilire il tunnel VPN. Quindi questa è la soluzione più usata assolutamente in Italia come tipo di configurazione TOSIBOX, chiavi e lock per la teleassistenza. In questi ultimi anni TOSIBOX ha lavorato molto su tutto invece quello che riguarda la piattaforma software per portare una transizione che non è solo la teleassistenza, ma quello che viene richiesto ultimamente sul mercato e che verrà richiesto sempre di più, che vuol dire monitoraggio continuo, raccolta dati, manutenzione predittiva. Quindi con le soluzioni software già esistenti, TOSIBOX Hub è una piattaforma di TOSIBOX già esistente, chiamata anche Virtual Central Lock, per fare migliaia di connessioni VPN contemporanee sempre aperte. Hanno aggiunto, e lo vedremo adesso nelle prossime slide, anche il TOSI Control che si abbina al TOSIBOX Hub per quanto riguarda la semplificazione della gestione utenti. Perché nei prossimi anni, quindi quando molte aziende avranno la necessità di controllare contemporaneamente centinaia o migliaia di impianti con tunnel VPN sempre aperti, ci sarà bisogno di queste due piattaforme che semplificano assolutamente la gestione delle connessioni. Quindi queste prossime slide spiegano soprattutto le soluzioni nuove che fanno di TOSIBOX una soluzione veramente completa dalla A alla Z, dalla semplice teleassistenza al monitoraggio su larga scala, mantenendo tutti i requisiti di sicurezza principali per il mondo dell'automazione industriale. Ok, cari, we can continue.
Grazie, Simone. All right, let's continue with TOSI control. We just wanted to briefly introduce TOSI control, and then if you're interested, please let Simone know. We can also organize you a demo. We can go more deeply into this, but I just wanted to briefly introduce TOSI control. So with TOSI control, you get a visualization of your entire OT network. So this is a completely new user interface, and this enables visibility over the entire OT network. So this visualizes all your TOSIBOX locks, your keys, your users, TOSIBOX hubs. You will be able to do searches. You can easily search for a user or for a lock. You can see the status of your systems. Are they online or offline, or is there a problem with connectivity? You can see the software versions and so forth. So this is a new real-time view into your OT network. So makes it very easy to quickly get a look and make sure that everything is functioning normally and to understand how your network has been connected. And Simone, feel free to translate if you want to any of these.
Yes, of course. Allora, giusto una breve spiegazione. Il TOSI Control, come dicevo, è una piattaforma che viene abbinata al TOSIBOX Hub. Il TOSIBOX Hub permette di fare migliaia di connessioni in contemporanea. Il TOSI Control è la nuova soluzione che permette in maniera molto più semplice e da qualsiasi luogo di poter gestire non solo gli utenti, ma anche l'accesso dei vari utenti ai vari dispositivi, non solo intesi come dispositivi TOSIBOX, quindi non solo gestire la possibilità di attivare un utente a connettersi a un determinato router, ma anche a limitare l'accesso ai dispositivi Ethernet collegati al router stesso. Quindi una piattaforma dove io posso controllare gli utenti e i vari dispositivi singoli, quindi telecamere IP, PLC, HMI, collegati sugli impianti e dare accesso o meno ai vari dispositivi. Ok.
All right, let's move on. Also, a new in TOSI Control is we have introduced a user management feature. So now you can actually register your TOSIBOX users so that they will each have a user profile. So you will have the name and the contact information and the profile picture for that user. So the users can actually register. You can send them, you can invite them to your TOSIBOX network, and then you can have that user information always in place. So instead of just knowing the numbers of the keys that the users have, you will actually know who is using those keys. So every TOSIBOX key can be attached to a user profile, and there are also different user roles for owners or admins or normal users. So you always know who has the which key, and if the user, let's say, leaves a company or a service partner goes away and there's a new service partner instead, you can keep track of those users and make sure that they are up to date. And this is all visible in the same user interface in TOSI Control. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You wanna translate briefly that?
Yeah, of course, just a little bit, because it's good to know. Allora, una cosa importantissima: in passato chi ha già utilizzato TOSIBOX sa che la gestione degli utenti è sempre avvenuta tramite la gestione delle chiavi, quindi chiave hardware o chiave software, un utente. In realtà, grazie a TOSI Control si può ramificare questa gestione, ovvero l'utente può anche essere in possesso di più chiavi e più licenze. Quindi con il TOSI Control in un'unica operazione posso gestire un unico utente che magari comprende sotto di sé più licenze hardware o software. Quindi è un'ulteriore semplificazione alla gestione utenti nei casi di connessione, soprattutto per le aziende che hanno magari decine o centinaia di utenti che devono autenticarsi alle VPN o che comunque cambiano spesso, quindi magari aziende che collaborano a loro volta con esterni che cambiano spesso e quindi c'è bisogno di gestire molte volte lo scambio delle licenze. Il TOSI Control è un'ulteriore semplificazione. Ok.
Grazie. Okay, so that was just a very brief introduction, so feel free to let Simone know if you want a more in-depth presentation, then we can schedule that for you, but just a brief overview. And I also just wanted to briefly show you a couple of new lock models we have. You can also ask more about these later, and we can present you and give you more information, but just wanted to briefly mention the new lock models we have, the 350 and all the 300 series. We have two models in the 300 series. We have the 350. It has 10 megabit VPN throughput, It has 4 Ethernet ports, 4 LAN ports. It has a WAN port. It has a USB interface, and it has a digital I/O. So 2 pairs of digital I/O support built in, and everything is on the front panel here. You have a DIN rail attachment on the back of the devices. These are IP30 class protected devices, and a built-in Wi-Fi as well. So this is a completely new device, and we have basically 2 devices. We have the 350 and we have 375. The only difference between these 2 is that the 375 has a 4G LTE modem built in, so you don't need any additional modems. You have a modem built in with the device. You have a Wi-Fi, and you have the same features in both of these, but the 375 has a 4G connectivity built in. So these are completely new TOSIBOX devices, that lock devices that are available right now. You want to briefly translate?
Yes, of course. Come ha appena detto Cari, questa è un po' la news a livello hardware di quest'anno. Quindi questi 2 dispositivi, il lock 350 e il lock 375, che saranno di fondamentale importanza perché hanno tutte le caratteristiche standard che ci vengono richieste dal mercato, nel senso che molti di voi ad oggi usano il lock 150, che è il prodotto più venduto di TOSIBOX. Sicuramente il 350 diventa una valida alternativa sia in termini economici, ma soprattutto a livello di caratteristiche, perché mantiene sempre la connessione internet via cavo, le porte LAN, quindi come switch integrato a bordo, il wifi, quindi sia client che access point, e soprattutto più del 150 integra i 2 ingressi e le 2 uscite digitali che molte volte ci vengono richiesti per abilitare o disabilitare la teleassistenza tramite ingresso e notificare che è sul posto appunto la VPN aperta o la connessione internet stabilita. Il 375 invece è il fratello maggiore, oltre ad avere la connessione via cavo o via wifi, integra il modem, quindi per poter utilizzare la SIM e quindi svincolarsi da qualsiasi connessione aziendale, che sia cablata o che sia wifi. Il 375 mi permette di collegarmi via SIM. Poi anche lui switch a bordo e ingressi e uscite digitali. Okay.
All right. And finally, also wanted to quickly mention we have a 5G model in the 600 series, which has a built-in 5G modem built in. Has 4 LAN ports, WAN port. It has 2 SIM card slots, so you can use 2 different providers. Have automatic failover, redundant connectivity built in the box. 5G coverage, of course, it supports 4G as well, but has a 5G built in, has a Wi-Fi built in, and this is also one of our newest devices that is available right now from the 600 series, top of the line model there. So I just wanted to briefly introduce this one as well.
Yes. Naturalmente, allora, come tutti sapete, adesso si parla spesso di 5G. In ambiente industriale, onestamente, ci capitano pochissime richieste, però vista la transizione da semplice teleassistenza a prodotto di raccolta dati e monitoraggio continuo, in alcune applicazioni dove c'è bisogno di estrema velocità, perché magari sono tanti dati che devono passare all'interno della rete o del tunnel VPN, TOSIBOX ha fatto anche questo nuovo modello con connessione 5G, quindi dove naturalmente il vantaggio principale è la velocità della connessione. Questo dual SIM per avere la ridondanza degli operatori e quindi essere certi di una connessione internet anche nelle applicazioni difficili magari o in zone comunque più gravose dove è difficile avere una connessione ad internet. Ok, cari.
All right. I think we are running almost out of time, so I just wanted to conclude that with the TOSIBOX platform, we enable securing your OT networks and responding to those challenges that we were discussing earlier easily, automatically, and in a secure manner. So with TOSI Control, with TOSIBOX Hub, with the TOSIBOX locks and keys, we enable the security and secure connectivity for OT networks. So would be happy to discuss this further. And if you have any questions, we will answer your questions in a minute, and then I will leave our contact information at the end. And of course, you can contact Telestar and Simone to discuss. But just wanted to briefly conclude this our presentation and Simone, should we maybe take a look at the questions now, if we have any questions? And if you have any questions, feel free to ask right now. You can put them in the chat or in the Q&A.
Yes, someone already wrote on WhatsApp, and maybe we will have also some meeting after this webinar to know more in depth about the TOSI Control and the TOSIBOX Hub. I see one question about the cost of the TOSI Control. Allora, immaginavo naturalmente tutte le domande riguardanti i costi. Allora, il TOSI Control è una piattaforma ad abbonamento, quindi insieme è legata all'acquisto del Virtual Central Lock, quindi è un discorso un pochino più ampio, nel senso che bisogna capire, usando il Virtual Central Lock, quante sono le connessioni VPN che servono, quindi sempre attive, e a quel punto si va a scegliere anche la licenza, si aggiunge la licenza del TOSI Control. Quindi questo assolutamente lo dobbiamo vedere poi in seconda battuta con ognuno di voi privatamente. La cosa che ci tenevo soprattutto, allora, nel frattempo avete tempo per scrivere qualche domanda, se avete qualche domanda. La chiosa finale che volevo fare è che naturalmente allora, in questi webinar non ci possiamo soffermare più di tanto su tutta la soluzione perché dobbiamo rimanere in un tempo limitato. La cosa importante da trasferire a voi è che TOSIBOX, come vi dicevo, diventa non solo, in realtà lo è sempre stata, però sempre di più con i prodotti nuovi si afferma come azienda che fa non solo il prodotto per la teleassistenza semplice e veloce, quindi lo uso nel momento del bisogno e poi me ne dimentico. Sta diventando a tutti gli effetti TOSIBOX una soluzione completa e super performante sia a livello velocità di connessione, ma anche sotto l'aspetto della sicurezza dei dati, che sarà sempre più importante. Sta diventando una soluzione perfetta proprio per chi ha bisogno di o si chiede come faccio a iniziare a raccogliere dati dalle macchine senza legarmi a soluzioni cloud che salvano i miei dati e sul quale io sarò poi legato, dico per tutta la vita, ma sul quale avrò un legame forte, perché una volta che mando i miei dati su un cloud e lo uso per un po' di tempo, sono comunque legato a quel dispositivo. Ecco, con TOSIBOX in realtà la soluzione diventa vostra, nel senso che TOSIBOX fornisce un metodo estremamente semplice, estremamente sicuro per fare X connessioni VPN contemporanee. Queste connessioni con il Virtual Central Lock possono transitare tutte magari su un cloud, perché il Virtual Central Lock, il TOSIBOX Hub, si può installare tranquillamente su macchina virtuale, su cloud, e la soluzione diventa completamente vostra. Quindi i dati sono vostri. TOSIBOX fa solo la trasmissione di questi dati in maniera sicura, ma sul cloud ci sarà un vostro software, un vostro SCADA, un vostro historian che vi permette appunto di di leggere, di avere i dati e di averli sempre per voi. Domani la VPN non volete più usare TOSIBOX per 1000 motivi, potete tranquillamente usare un'altra VPN, però i dati, la cosa importante è che rimangono sempre a voi. Quindi questo è una cosa importantissima. Vedo una domanda riguardo la certificazione UL. Cari, there is a question about UL certification time of LOC 350. I think that it's not easy to say right data now.
Yeah, I don't have the exact time for the certification, but we can get back to this question once we have more specific information.
Sì, assolutamente, è in fase, è iniziato il prodotto è nuovo, è iniziata la fase di certificazione, quindi non sappiamo ancora i tempi, le questioni burocratiche, non sappiamo ancora i tempi, però sicuramente appena avremo news informiamo poi tutti con qualche newsletter anche sulla certificazione UL. Però in generale poi nel momento in cui inizia il processo di certificazione non ci vuole tantissimo. Okay.
Very good. I don't think we have any other questions, but I will put the contact information here. So please feel free to contact Telestar, contact Simone if you want to. If you have any more questions, you can contact us directly at TOSIBOX as well. You can book a demo. You can also contact Simone, or you can go to our website tosibox.com and book a demo request, and we will organize it for you together. And you can contact our sales, or if you have any questions, feel free to contact Telestar or TOSIBOX directly. And on my behalf, I thank you for listening today, and we will submit you the link for the recording after this presentation. Maybe later today or by tomorrow, you will get the link. And thank you very much for your for your time today.
Thank you very much, Cari, for your presentation. Grazie a tutti, grazie di aver partecipato. Assolutamente, qualsiasi domanda, qualsiasi informazione, sapete, avete tutti i nostri contatti e saremo felici di rispondervi, assolutamente. Ok.
Grazie. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks to you, Cari. Bye bye. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Buona giornata a tutti.
Bye.